Hi, everyone. I'm Cheryl Dorchinsky from the Atlanta Israel Coalition. We're thrilled to have you here with us today as we are touring Eilat with David Sussman. So great to see people from all over the world joining us. We definitely want to thank our sponsors, the Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta, the Atlanta Jews of Color Council, the Jewish Community Relations Council, and the Consulate General of Israel to Southeast. Thanks to our promotional partners, Augusta Jewish Museum, Hillels of Georgia, Lawfare Project, Club Z, Canadian Anti-Semitism Education Foundation, Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, and Jew Hatred Movement, St. Louis Friends of Israel, the Atlanta Jewish Singles, Age Well Atlanta, Marcus JCC of Atlanta, Hebrew Order of David International, which also brings us the fabulous Atlanta Kosher Barbecue Festival, the Weber School, Congregation, B'nai Torah, and B'nai B'rith International. And to our media partners, thank you for getting the word out. Just to remind you, today, we have not charged anything to you to join us. If you can find it in your heart and in your wallets to give, we'd appreciate it, especially for the tours. If you put down tours, we can compensate David with some tips from you. And there are several ways to do that listed here above. And for more information on virtual tours, or if you want to book a trip, please contact David. And just to give you a sneak preview, we plan on doing a live tour with David in Israel and love to have you all joining us. So without any further delay, David, are you there with us?
Thank you so much for that introduction, Cheryl, and welcome to all of our viewers out there. This is the Atlanta Israel Coalition's live virtual tour of the southern city of Israel, Eilat. Eilat is a beautiful resort town. As you can see, this incredible hotel behind me, the Queen of Sheba, formerly the Hilton Resort here in Eilat. It's not the only five-star hotel here in town. There are literally thousands of rooms here that give accommodations for all of the tourists from really around the world that come here to the city of Eilat, but also local Israeli tourism, as this is one of the places that all Israelis visit at least once in their life, and really multiple times, different stages of their life as well. Just like in America, a lot of college kids will head to Miami Beach for spring break. Well, when it's vacation time, college students, those in the Army, when they get a little time for some R&R, where do they want to go? For sure, Tel Aviv, but also here to Eilat, because there's so much to offer here in this beautiful resort town. Located on the Red Sea, this is the place to come for some water adventure, water sports galore, jet skiing, sailing, and of course, parasailing, but most importantly, scuba diving. And what are people seeing when they scuba dive here in Eilat? Well, here in the Red Sea, in the Gulf of Aqaba here in Eilat, is a prime location for coral reef and tropical fish, as well as dolphins, sea turtles, manta ray, all types of sea life can be seen scuba diving here. And just look out at the harbor over here. You'll see all the boats. You can see some of the boats here that are offering some of the water sports I was talking about, the rafting, fishing, banana boat rides, and of course, the glass bottom boat. So if you're afraid of going into the water, you can still enjoy the coral reef and all those tropical fish by going on one of those special boats. So before we really get into the kushkas, into the nitty gritty here of the city of Eilat, I want to say thank you again, as I always do, to the Atlanta Israel Coalition for giving me the opportunity to do what I love, which is to bring the land of Israel to all of you at home since during this pandemic for the last, well, now it's almost 2 years, the borders, which opened up today, my friends, for international tourists who've been vaccinated within 6 months, have not been able to come here because, yes, the borders have been closed. And so the only opportunity I have is to do live virtual tours to all of you around the world who are tuning in. And believe it or not, this is our 11th live virtual tour all around the land of Israel. And who knows how many more we're going to bring to you. But one thing's for sure, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing a live virtual tour of a northern city here in Eilat, from south to the north. And that is another port city, but not on the Red Sea. This would be on the Mediterranean Sea. And we're talking about the city of Haifa. And that'll be our 12th and possibly our final live virtual tour before we do a live tour. So you guys are all going to receive an email at the end of this tour with links. If you didn't see any of the previous tours and you want to see one of the recordings, you can do so, but also with information about this in-person live tour that we hope to do this year, in fact. So we're looking forward to hearing a little bit from all of you of what you'd like to see on a live in-person tour so that we can cultivate and create an itinerary that's a perfect fit for all of our fans and viewers around the world that want to join us. Eilat is a resort town and it has resort type of activities. And you can see actually just over here to my left, you can see it's almost like a little bit like Atlantic City or forgot the name of the place already in Brooklyn and in New York, Coney Island, right? Coney Island, a couple little roller coasters for the kids. Here we got, you know, the swings that are whipping around, going all the way up high, giving great views of the entire Gulf over here, views into Jordan and the mountains here in Eilat. And one of my favorite activities, the fireball over here, which will be live later on this evening. It lights up, and of course it's one of those things that, you know, you sit in a ball and it shoots you way up into the sky and then brings you crashing down. A real thrill ride. I've done it. In fact, maybe I'll send a video of one of the times I did this with one of the youth groups, right? If you're kids in high school who want to come to Israel, there are many opportunities in the summer for high schoolers to come to Israel, like in a summer camp. You know, there's NCSY, and BBYO, and USY, and Tribe Tour, coming from all different places around the world. Or if you're in college or just finished up college, there's Birthright, Taglit, which comes here, and almost all of these youth groups come here to Eilat for a night in order to enjoy the beautiful southern city over here, and of course, the gorgeous Red Sea. And just like in Atlantic City and Coney Island and all those other places, Venice Beach, you got your little bazaar over here. It's closed, and it might be closed actually because of the lack of international tourism, which is a big part of the economy here in Eilat. Or maybe it's going to open up later on this evening, but you have these shops, and you know, somebody's making a necklace with a grain of rice that they can write your name on it, but you know, really cool tie-dyes and all the kind of stuff that you're going to find in one of these marketplaces on any beach city or tourist attraction type place that you would visit anywhere here in the world. Now, Eilat has a lot of history, and we're going to jump into it a little bit, definitely in the surrounding areas. People primarily come here to Eilat for two reasons, right? One is strictly for some R&R, sitting by the pool, having a daiquiri or strawberry daiquiri, a pina colada, and enjoying the sun, right? Go swimming in the Red Sea. But it's really a great place for getting out into nature. Wow, we got beautiful mountains over here, some incredible hiking through the Red Canyon. Timah Park's only a half-hour north. We're going to actually visit, pre-recorded earlier today, a few live tours of Timah Park and Mitzvah Ramon, some of the beautiful nature. So we're going to see some of that as well. So people come here for the hiking, for the ATVing. There's a camel ranch here in Eilat. just a lot of activities for families and people of all ages that want to get out and enjoy the great nature. Let's head down. I just want to show you a little bit of the sea. It's a little bit choppy here. We're actually lucking out right now because it was called for rain. And it looks like it's going to hold for another couple hours. So believe it or not, the water doesn't look that choppy. But for Eilat and for the Red Sea, this is extremely choppy. It's usually very, very smooth water, very placid. And which is one of the reasons why coral reef here is able to cultivate, right? It's a very sensitive organism. Really only grows in very particular climates, right? The water can't get too cold, can't get too warm. And here in the Gulf of Aqaba, the Gulf of Eilat, the tip of the Red Sea, the water stays primarily between 22 degrees Celsius to 26 degrees Celsius. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to convert that into Fahrenheit, but that is the temperature for coral reef to grow. And as you can see, the ground I'm walking on, it's not like the beautiful Tel Aviv beach, which has got some of the best sand anywhere in the world, because that sand's being brought all the way through the Nile River and into the Mediterranean Sea at the Gulf of Alexandria, and the currents that travel up north dump all that sand on Tel Aviv and Caesarea and the various beaches on the Mediterranean here in Israel. This is a little bit more of a rocky beach, and I don't know how well you can see it because it's kind of cloudy, a little bit hazy, but the mountains you can see only in the distance over there on the other side, that is all Jordan. Jordan is located just over there. In fact, there's a huge palace that the king of Jordan built. A lot of people don't realize that Jordan's actually a kingdom. We talked a little bit about that on our tour of Masada and how they came about. Very, very interesting story. Definitely check out that tour, the recording of it, if you want to learn more about it. So the Red Sea that comes up here is part of a formation, a geological formation known as the Syrian African Rift. And I've mentioned that probably almost all of my tours. And the reason why, it's probably one of the most prominent, whoa, here comes the water, one of the most prominent geological formations here in Israel. And the reason why is that it's 3,600 miles long. It's the largest rift valley anywhere in the world. It actually starts in Africa, and it's what's opened up the Red Sea here from the Indian Ocean. And it continues through the Arava Valley and the Dead Sea Valley, the lowest place in the world that you can walk on dry land, and all the way up north, the Sea of Galilee and the Hula Valley. These are all places that we visited on previous tours as well. So what we're going to do is stop right there, Phil. I just want you guys to take a gander in this direction. You can see, oh, you got it. You can see some of the buildings behind me and some of the mountains here in Eilat. There's a nice shopping center there, and I want to take you in there just to see a little bit of the life here in Eilat and some of the shops. But as I walk over there, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Cheryl to go ahead and play the video on Mitzpeh Ramon. Mitzpeh Ramon is this incredible little town that sits on the edge of a machtesh, a crater. It's probably about 2 hours north of Eilat, but most people who visit Eilat that are in Israel already are going to drive down there, and it is one of the stops that every tourist heading down to Eilat must go to just to appreciate the sheer beauty. So, I mean, Lee, can you go ahead and run that video?
Hey everybody, David Sussman here with the Atlanta Israel Coalition in the sleepy desert city of Mitzpeh Ramon, overlooking the beautiful Ramon Crater, known here in Israel as Machtesh Ramon. Mitzpeh Ramon is a beautiful place.
Lee, we can't see the video. Sorry to interrupt.
Sleepy.
Hi, please accept our apologies for this.
Hey everybody,
technical
David
difficulty.
Sussman here with the Atlanta
Nope, still
Israel
can't see the video.
Coalition in the sleepy desert city of Mitzvah Ramon, overlooking the
see it?
beautiful
No.
Ramon Crater,
Can you hear
known here in Israel as
Oh, we can hear it. We just can't see it.
Mitzvah
Thank you again,
Ramon.
everyone, for being patient.
Beautiful
That's the beauty of live tours.
who have been here
David is
may
right now
have
going
stayed
from one place to
at
another,
five-star
and
hotel known as the
he is supposed to be
Hershey
playing
Hotel, and
the
it's called the
video for us. Here we go.
Hershey Hotel.
Thank you.
Because that. Hey everybody, David Sussman here with the Atlanta Israel Coalition in the sleepy desert city of Mitzvah Ramon, overlooking the beautiful Ramon Crater, known here in Israel as Machtesh Ramon. Mitzvah Ramon is a beautiful place to visit. Some of you who have been here may have stayed at the five-star hotel known as the Bereshit Hotel, and it's called the Bereshit Hotel because that is the Hebrew word for the book of Genesis, which of course is the beginning of creation. And many people feel that visiting here, you're actually touching some of those early stones, those early rocks from the dawn of creation. And why is that? Well, I mentioned it's a crater. And when people think of crater, of course, they think of a meteor coming down, crashing and forming this huge crater. But this is actually a unique geological formation known as an erosion crater, which you can actually only find here in Israel. We have 5 of them, but this is the largest. And how was it formed? Well, come with me as we head into the crater and learn its formation. Yalla. All right, folks, here we are at the bottom of the Machtesh, and you can see some of the beautiful stones behind me, the sandstone, the different colors you can see that are developed either by different minerals in the sandstone or the different levels of oxidation of the iron and the various minerals that are found in it. Now, we're actually in a dried out riverbed that when it rains, this is where the flash floods that's collecting all the rainwater from the various areas here in the Machtesh are going to eventually arrive here in this riverbed. And it was this riverbed actually that really caused out the major part of the erosion of the Machtesh. In fact, it's been raining a little bit already this year, and there's little bits of water here and there around this riverbed that we're in right now. But I came here to show you how the crater was formed. So come down here into the sand. This ancient, beautiful sand that we have here in the middle of this beautiful Machtesh. And what you had was tectonic movements that took place roughly about 120 million years ago. Tectonic plates crashing into one another and eventually forming mountains. So let's make a nice little mountain over here, okay? This is the mountain, okay? And this is the east, that's towards Jordan, and the west and the Mediterranean would be behind me. Now, eventually this mountain that formed was covered over by an ocean, which is what formed the limestone at the very, very top. Now, eventually that ocean began to recede and you had a little island that was popping up. Let's make the limestone first, right? The limestone is formed by that ocean. So we're going to mimic the ocean water just by splashing some of the water that actually collected here in this riverbed from the rains that came recently. And it's going to harden the sand a little bit. And it's the same concept actually that creates that, that limestone that we find really all around Israel. It's also how the chalk here in Israel is formed as well. In fact, most stones are formed this way. Dead sea matter flows down to the bottom. The pressure of that ocean, depending on how high it is, depends on the stone that you're going to get. Limestone is roughly between 2 and 4 kilometers deep depth of water. Eventually, that water is going to begin to recede, and you have a little island, and the waves are going to crash on top of the mountain, and it'll peel away the top layer of limestone, revealing the sandstone, right? That'll be much older than the limestone inside the mountain. Now, simultaneously, again, tectonic movements, the largest rift valley in the entire world, the Syrian-African Rift, is 3,600 miles long, from Mozambique in Africa all the way up to the Taurus Mountains in Turkey. This begins to form, and that's the Arava Valley that separates us from Jordan. It's where the Dead Sea is located as well. So that's forming to the east. You're going to have the lowest place in the world, right? The Dead Sea itself. And this is going to force all of the mountains and the area of the Negev Desert to begin to slant slightly to the east, just slightly enough that when it rains, instead of the water from the top of this mountain flowing down all the sides equally, it's now basically leaning towards the east. And over, again, hundreds of millions of years, you're going to have a erosion begin to form. And all that sandstone, you see what I'm doing right here? All that sandstone, every time it's raining, it's going to get pushed down towards the east. And you just see what just happened there? The walls, the limestone walls begin to cave in. And it keeps on going, 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 right? Until we get to the bottom of the Maktesh over here. And you'll have, right, all this sand's being taken away in the Arava Valley and its flash floods, either to the south or to the north. And what you're left with is the cliffs, right? You'll have like, let me get a stone right here, right? You'll have Mitzpeh Ramon that's located just that way, ever so slightly, a little bit to the north and to the west a little bit, sitting right on the edge, these limestone cliffs that we saw a little bit earlier. And down below, you'll have this stone that's 400 million years old, limestone, volcanic rock, right? We mentioned a little bit before volcanoes that existed here prior to the formation of the mountain that was covered over with sandstone, the Dead Sea matter, eventually the limestone. So all of this is getting carved out. And this is what an erosion, or how an erosion crater is formed, and how all the Makteshim, but the most beautiful one, the largest one, Maktesh Ramon, where we're located right now, was formed as well. So let's now go for a little bit of a walk and a hike here in the Maktesh. But before we do so, I don't want to litter. But take this. I want to bring you to this great activity that one can do here in the Maktesh with your kids. But before we go there, I'm actually going to collect a little rainwater. I mentioned before that it's rained here a little bit, so there's been a couple flash floods. There's still pools of water here. So come with me. I just gotta hike through some of these really beautiful stones. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of animal tracks here at the bottom as well, because wherever you're gonna have water here in the desert, obviously the animals want to come here, usually in the evening time in order to drink some of the water. I can see there's some tracks over here. Could be a hyena, could be some large cats in the area. There's also wild donkeys, some of the last wild donkeys actually in the world that live here in the bottom of the Maktesh. There's another pool of water that you can see. But I really just wanted to bring you over here. Let's see if we can find a nice example. You know what, we might not even need any of the water. The stones are pretty wet looking over here, actually. It's really amazing from the flash floods that were here. Just look at the beautiful colors, okay? Look at these beautiful colors that you have here. Well, believe it or not, some of this sandstone was used by ancient man, again, you know, really, really long time ago, as makeup, right? Put it, you know, maybe even war paint, or in modern times now, let's just splash it with a little bit of water. You know, like football players, right? And they make that little line underneath their eyes. Let's see if some of that comes out. Kids love coming over here. They do a little face painting, right? Some of that ancient war paint put underneath your eyes, like a football player, right? Ready, set, hike. Let's go, Buffalo. So the word for desert in Hebrew is midbar. Now you can learn a lot about a people, a nation, through their language. And Hebrew is no different. Ancient Israelites and the Jewish people today. The word midbar, which means desert, is also the same spelling for medaber, which is the verb to speak. So there must be a connection between midbar, desert, and medaber, to speak. What is that connection? So we know many of the prophets that we find in the Bible had their prophecies where? In the midbar. Because it was here in a place of quietness, solitude, reflection, meditation that one can truly hear themselves speak to them, or in religious terms, to hear God speak to you. Even today, there are many Hasidic Jews that part of their religious practice is to go in the middle of nature and to God. That practice is known as Hisbadadut. And that is one of the things that the Midbar offers you, a place to medaber, to commune with yourself, and of course, with the Almighty up above. But the desert held some ancient powers, but nobody could harness this wild terrain where only maybe 50 milliliters of water rains in a year, and only during the rainy season, which is about 6 months here in Israel, over to about April. But there was an ancient people known as the Nabateans, who were historically a nomadic people who traversed the desert following the rains in order to allow their flocks to graze on the grass that would grow. However, that's not the only commerce that they practiced. They also controlled the spice route, bringing spices and incense like frankincense and myrrh, a famous ancient incense, across the desert to the ports, right, of Gaza, or today Ashkelon, Ashdod, the major ports here in Israel even today. And from there, those spices would be brought to the west, to Europe, and traded in the marketplaces in the various cities around the world. This gave the Nabateans incredible wealth, and they controlled the spice route for hundreds of years. And what did they do with that wealth? Interestingly enough, one of their laws of their society is that you weren't allowed to be stationary. You weren't allowed to build yourself a permanent home, and you weren't allowed to plant fields, groves, orchards, trees, because if you do that, what are you going to want to do? You're going to want to tend to your field, which means you're going to want to stay in one place. And they were a nomadic desert tribe. So in addition to that, and all of this wealth that they earned, they were not allowed to give their wealth to their offspring, to their children. So what would they do? They would build for themselves these monumental tombs cut out into the rock, into the sandstone, across the desert here in the Middle East, in particular in a city known today as Petra. And Petra is one of the 8 wonders of the ancient world because of these beautiful, true tombs that were carved out for these wealthy Nabateans. Now, the bones that were buried there 2,000 years ago were removed during the Byzantine period, when Christian monks took those tombs, those rock-cut monuments, and used them as a place to become a hermit, to meditate, and like we said before, midbar, medaber, to commune with God. Well, fast forward about 2,000 years, modern Israel is here, and they harnessed once again the power of the desert, not for the water, not for water, but rather to build massive mines here at the bottom of the Maktesh. And these mines really were looking for 2 substances. You might have noticed some of the red rock you can see all around the Maktesh. Well, this red rock was used to produce the red tiles, really, that you see all around the Mediterranean states, but the red roofing tiles that we see here in Israel. A lot of that early material was mined here in Mitzvah Ramon. But the massive mining tool that you can see behind me was also used to mine copper. Copper in the 60s and 70s spiked, and the value of copper went up, primarily due to the Vietnam War. Copper was needed for the war effort, and Israel opened up these mines. Vietnam War ended, the value of copper began to recede, closed in the 80s, but they left a terrible scar upon this beautiful landscape. So an incredible restoration project over the last 20 years have been taking place here at the bottom of the Maktesh. It's been turned into a national park with hiking trails and parking lots and even paved roads, in order that you can both see some of the ancient, or not ancient, but the old mining that took place here. But you can also see some of those old, pits that they dug out that material in the ground, which then revealed the layering of stone here at the bottom of the Maktesh, some of the fossils. They even tapped into some spring water that comes up, really and truly making what was once a scar upon the landscape into something beautiful, something that we can go visit. And you have families, Israelis as well as tourists, who come here in order to enjoy this majestic land that we have here in the Negev Desert at the bottom of the Maktesh. And in fact, if you really want to rough it a little bit, or not rough it so much, but feel like you are, there are campsites here, both for those that want to go camping with their own tent and little gas stove in order to cook for themselves, but they also have glamping sites that you can rent out, these beautiful tents that are air conditioned, and they make breakfast for you, or even barbecue dinner if you're with a large enough group. Really an awesome place to visit. And probably the most the most popular attraction here, besides the hiking, is stargazing. And people come here during the annual meteor shower, and the city of Mitzpeh Ramon that we talked a little bit about earlier turns off all of the street lights and all of the public lighting so that there is as minimal amount of light pollution, so that those that are at the bottom of the Maktesh, all around the Maktesh here in Mitzpeh Ramon, can enjoy the meteor shower in its full glory, if you will. Come with me as we exit the Maktesh. We head south, continuing towards en route to Eilat, and we're going to stop at another mining facility. In fact, it's the place where the copper period will begin, and I'm talking about Timah Park. So come with me.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that tour of Mitzpeh Ramon, because we absolutely loved filming it. It's really one of my favorite places here in Israel. In fact, the entire southern region of Israel, from Beersheba, Mitzpeh Ramon, the Arava Valley, all the way south here towards Eilat, is just so beautiful and majestic. And oftentimes when people think of Israel, that's the scenery that they think of, because they think Israel is a large desert, and 60% of it is a desert. The largest desert is the Negev Desert, and that's the desert that Mitzpeh Ramon is located in. However, later on in our tour, we're going to visit Timah Park, just half-hour north of Eilat, and that is located in the Arava Valley and the Arava Desert, a totally different desert, different climate, different vegetation, different wildlife, really incredible. And of course, we have the Judean Desert, which is where Masada is located in the Dead Sea. And last but not least, a little bit of the Sinai Desert that creeps into Eilat and the Eilat Mountains. Now, one of the additional attractions here in Eilat is the shopping. And it's not really the shopping that tourists from abroad are going to come to Israel for. It's not like Sfat or the Old City in Jerusalem, where people are going to want to buy Judaica and a beautiful piece of art that was made by an Israeli here. But rather, this is shopping for local tourism, Israelis who are coming down here. And there are a number of malls and outlet stores that are located over here. And in fact, one of the malls, actually, it's called Ice Mall. It has an ice rink in the middle of it, and they have shows over there. And they have a bar that's all ice that you got to get all bundled up, which is great in the summertime, right? Because in the summertime, you are really hot here in Eilat, right? You can get to 115 degrees Fahrenheit, no problem, in the months of July and August. To go to the ice mall and go to the ice bar and have to get all bundled up to have your hot cocoa is obviously a lot of fun. But the reason why people are coming here to do their shopping, specifically to buy like a new computer or an Apple phone or expensive household items, is that there is no VAT, value-added tax. It's our sales tax over here. And believe it or not, sales tax in Israel is 17%. And I believe we can exit over here, is 17%. So people, locals, want to come down here. It's one of the things that Israel did in order to bring local tourism here to Eilat. So just walking out of the mall right now is a mass mandate Israel. So just coming out of the mall here, come around this way. What I want to do is talk a little bit about the War of Independence, right? It's going to begin really, you could say, November 29, 1947, when the United Nations declared for partition to partition the land of Israel over here and give it to the Arabs to call it what they want, a section, and for the Jews to call whatever it was that we wanted to call it. Of course, we chose the name Israel, but there was two other names that were in consideration as well. One of them was Judea, which was the last name of the kingdom here in the land of Israel during the Second Temple period. And the other one, believe it or not, was Palestine, right? Because the name Palestine had been used to reference this land. There was never a Palestinian state or a place called Palestine before, but it was a name that the Romans gave to the land of Israel in the year 135 CE. And it was used by all the foreign empires that controlled this land. And so the Jews that were living here actually called themselves Palestinian. The Arabs living here would coin that term in 1964. It's a whole nother conversation, one that we don't need to get into right now. But in 1947, November 29th, partition, the local Arab population here is going to rebel against this blooming Jewish community that just keeps on growing and is having tremendous success. And this will really be the beginning of the War of Independence. Now, on May 14th, we will declare officially our independence. And at that time, 5 standing armies will invade this new state, the Haganah, which was one of the paramilitary organizations here led by David Ben-Gurion, who will become the first prime minister at the time. He's also the man who will declare our independence in Tel Aviv on that date. He was the head of the Haganah. The Haganah will now be called the Israeli Defense Forces. We've never actually attacked another nation. All wars and all battles that we fought have been in defense of our homeland. And during the War of Independence, it doesn't end on May 14th or May 15th, would be the next day, with Shabbat. It was actually the official day that the British pulled out. But it will go all the way until July of 1949. But it's basically going to conclude in the month of March of that year, 1949, here in Eilat, okay? What you can see behind me, this old building, is the last building of its kind that's standing here in Eilat, when this was known as Rash, right? It was a small Arab fishing village with about 15 huts like this. Many of the fishermen did not live here in these huts. This was just where they stored their supplies. They lived on the other side over there, as we saw earlier, in what's today Jordan, in a little town called Aqaba, which is really a large town now over there. And they have their own hotels and their own tourism that people from the Arab states, when they want to come visit this region, this area, they'll stay over in Jordan at that resort town. It's sometimes a little like eerie, a little funny feeling, just knowing, you know, that our cousins are just right over there, really having the same experience that we are. And hopefully one day we'll be able to share those experiences together in peace. So Rash is a small fishing village that was located here in Eilat with about 15 of these buildings. Most of them had been run down or destroyed completely, also during the fighting that took place here. And later on, during the development of Eilat, they were knocked down until there was only one remaining. That's when Israel realized that we should preserve it to tell the story of Rash and, of course, the battles here in 1949. 2 different brigades, the Negev Brigade and the Golani Brigade, are giving directives to come and liberate this region, because even though it was included in the partition plan of 1947 by the UN, it had not been fully secured by the Israeli Defense Forces until March of 1949. And David Ben-Gurion, who had a tremendous vision for the Negev Desert, for the southern part of Israel. 60% of Israel's landmass is this sort of wasteland, this desert area. But in his mind, he saw the desert as the test of the pioneering spirit of the young Israelis who were here, that we needed to tame the desert in order to make it grow and bloom, just like the Bible tells us that it will one day. Well, that day has arrived. 70% of all Israel's agriculture is actually grown here in the desert region. And he wanted to see the desert filled with like 5 million people living here today. There's probably about 600,000 people living in this large landmass. So we're on our way. Don't worry, David Ben-Gurion. We keep on working. In fact, Eilat, where we are right now, has grown in the last 20 years that I've been living here in Israel. I remember coming down here in 2001, the population was roughly about 30,000. Today, the population of Eilat is about 50,000, okay? So 1949, David Ben-Gurion, he tells the IDF, he says, hey, we need to secure the port city of Eilat. And the reason why is that this Red Sea that we could see over here, this is going to be our port to the east, and it's our southern area to export goods and to import goods as well. And we're going to visit the port of Eilat and talk a little bit about what we're doing here in order to grow that import-export business here towards the east, right? Towards China and towards Asia and all of those blooming economies that we have today. So he says, we need to have it. So he calls on the Negev Brigade, which is the rightful brigade, the Negev Brigade, the Negev Desert. They're the ones that really should come here. But he says, you know what? Just to ensure that we get it, he calls up the Golani Brigade, the Golan Heights, all the way in the northern part of Israel, right? They're usually stationed along the border of Syria and Lebanon. They're fighting up in the north. But he said, okay, we need to bring them down here. We've secured that area already. Let's bring them down here. Let's help out the Negev Brigade. So the Golani Brigade is going to take the route through the Arava. They're going to face some fighting from Jordanian forces. Those little forces were fighting that area. They'll circumvent them. It takes them a little time to get through all of these obstacles. Whereas the Negev Brigade is going to go from Beersheba and head down through like the area of Mitzpeh Ramon that we just visited right now. But along that route, there were no roads back then. So they needed to blow up boulders and bring in, you know, the engineers and build bridges. They were moving at a pace of about a mile an hour. Not very quick. In fact, it takes them 5 days to come here. They finally arrive here. They leave Beersheba on March 5th. They finally arrive here on March 10th. They clear out some areas so that planes can come in and bring some vital supplies and some armaments so that we can do our battles over here against the Jordanians. But it would be on that day, March 10th, or maybe it was the next day, March 11th, that the Negev Brigade will finally liberate this area and the city of Eilat will be born. About 2 hours later, the Negev Brigade will come here as well. But, you know, a little bit disheartened that they weren't the first ones here to Eilat. The Negev Brigade said, don't worry, we did this together. And on March 11th, they sent a notice to the government of Israel that says on this day, both the Negev Brigade and the Golani Brigade have handed the port city of Eilat to the hands of the Jewish people, to the Israelis who are living here. And you can see some soldiers right here, this statue, this monument commemorating that moment where they raised the Israeli flag, but they didn't have an actual Israeli flag. So they had one that was made with a white sheet and blue ink. And you can see the stripes on the top and the bottom. And of course, in the middle, the Magen David, the Star of David, and the symbol of the Jewish people here in the land of Israel. And thank God for that, because Eilat is a beautiful, amazing, gorgeous place to visit for so many reasons. The least of which is probably the shopping, definitely for you guys, but just to enjoy the sheer beauty. You know, these mountains that you can see, that we're going to see as we travel and we drive through the city. You can hike up to the top of any of them really and look out onto Egypt, which is just a few miles to our west and a few miles to our south. Jordan, which is just on the other side of the Gulf of Aqaba, and just a little bit south, maybe about 12 miles south, here you have Saudi Arabia. So you can be standing on a mountain in Israel, looking out onto Jordan, looking out onto Egypt, and even to the south into Saudi Arabia. Just a little bit of a reminder exactly where we are in the world. It really reminds me, where are we in Israel, right? We are we are roughly about 4.5 hours south of Jerusalem. That's where me and my camera guy, Phil, left from this morning. I live just south of Jerusalem in a place called Gush Etzion. We also did a live virtual tour from there as well. The path of the patriarchs where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all of our ancestors traversed across from the holy city of Hebron to the holy city of Jerusalem. And we drove south and past Beersheba. Even before the sun came up, we left about 4 o'clock in the morning in order to capture that video you saw just a little bit earlier of Mitzpeh Ramon. You know, Phil, let's just turn around real quick over here and just take a little gander here. You can see one of the nice hotels, the Club Hotel just over there. I don't know how much of it you can really make out, but it is a gorgeous little hotel over there. A lot of these hotels, that one included, has a wonderful pool in its backyard, in the courtyard area over there that is obviously very popular with the kids. But all the hotels have pools. I mean, this is a summer resort place. So you can see we have a parking lot right here. I'm parked. What my camera and I are going to do right now is we're going to travel a little bit south here in Eilat to get to the port area. And while we do that, Cheryl, before you move to that next video, I just want to also remind all of you that there is a Q&A section that you can go ahead and type in any questions that some of you have. I saw some people were engaged in that. And again, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. It means the world to me that you guys have all decided to spend your Sunday morning with me, traveling through the city of Eilat. And these pre-recorded videos that we made earlier today, sometimes there might be a little sound quality. It goes in and out a little bit. Don't mind it. It's nothing wrong with your computer, and it'll only last for a couple seconds here and there. So keep watching as the volume comes right back. But if you're appreciating this tour, I forgot to mention in the beginning that the Atlanta Israel Coalition, their entire staff volunteers in order to bring the truth to you, to bring Israel to you, and all of your donations, they don't go to administrative costs. They go to bringing you great content here in the land of Israel, so that you can be informed and up to date with the facts on the ground that are happening here, and also learn a little bit about Israel advocacy and various events and rallies that are happening in support of Israel around the world. And the only way we can really make this happen is through your donation. So please, if you can, if you're watching on Facebook, there's a little button. You can even hit it right now to donate, or after the tour. Watch out for the bus. Watch out for the bus. Watch out for the bus. Sorry about that, folks. Here's the bus. We want to keep Phil alive. So it can only happen with your donations and the email that you're going to get later. Please, if you have it in your heart, which we know you do, but if you also have it in your wallet, every dollar you give, and please give many, go to bringing you great quality content. So with that said, I want to bring us to Timah Park, just north of Eilat, another majestic place, another one of my favorite places here in Israel. And Phil and I are just going to travel a little bit south here in Eilat to the area of the port. So Cheryl, if you could roll that video, we'd appreciate it. Sussman here again with another Atlanta Israel Coalition short here in the southern part of Israel, in one of the great parks known as Timah Park, located probably half hour north of the city of Eilat. And Timah Park is really one of the most beautiful places to visit. You don't, shame on you. It's literally, there's so much history here. In fact, the development of the Copper Age. Copper is really discovered for the first time here in Timah, and there are ancient mines here. We're going to visit some of those ancient mines. We're going to crawl through some of the tunnels. We're going to learn how they would melt down, melt that and make. And of course, many people believe that solid mines were located right here. And Timah Park, though, beyond its historical importance, is also, like I said, one of the most beautiful geological places here. Really, it's as beautiful, if not even more beautiful, than Mitzpeh Ramon, just visited a little bit earlier today. And the formation is blocking the wind a little bit, so we don't up on the mic. But the formations here you can see are absolutely gorgeous. It's sandstone carved out by just eons of time. Right here it's known as Spiral Mountain. You can see the limestone just like at the Machtesh on the cliff walls over there. You can see these beautiful trees over here. These trees are known as acacia trees, and these are the acacia trees that are mentioned in the Bible, the same ones that Abraham would have sat down underneath. Just look at that plain right there, the water, the delta going out into the Arava Valley. To the south over here is Eilat, to the north towards the Dead Sea. Just an absolutely gorgeous park, and I'm excited to take you all there, so Yalla, let's go. So hiking through Timah Park, I can't help myself but think about Zion National Park, Arches National Park in Utah, and the beautiful red stones that you can find out in Nevada. But of course it's Eretz Israel, so it's even that much sweeter. In fact, if you just look over there, one of the famous hikes here in Timah Park, you can see that beautiful arch and that window. We're not going to hike up there today because we're going to continue up this path to where some of those ancient mines existed here, digging for copper. And as I mentioned before, this area is the first area. Come, I think it's this way actually. Sorry, over here. Is the first, is really the place that the copper or the Chalcolithic period will begin. And the way it begins is, we'll see some in just a little bit, but ancient man found these beautiful green stones. Figurines, probably make some idols out of it. You know, people were pagans back then. If you weren't Jewish, you were pagan, or the Jews really, monotheism wasn't around at this period. It's even before the days of Abraham. There we go. A little bit of a green nugget right here. Actually, there's a few of them. Come a little closer here, Phil. Green stones. Can you pick that up? You see that? These green stones, and they're all over right here. Copper right there in it. That's what copper looks like before they smelt it, or, you know, get all the other stuff out before it's pure copper. But that's how you know you have copper, that green look. That's a telltale sign that you found copper. Well, these green stones that they found were really quite beautiful. So they made figurines, probably made idols, but they would also make jewelry, right? The same things that make us tick today made us tick yesterday. We all want something beautiful. And so they used to send their miners out here, you know, the pharaohs in Egypt and, you know, various people throughout time to collect these green stones in order to make jewelry for the aristocracy of the ancient world. And these miners that would come out here at night, get chilly in the desert, they start a fire, start throwing these green stones that you find all over the place into the fire. They start noticing, you know, it makes this really cool, like, sparks, like it changes the color of the fire. And hey, it's pretty neat. It's a light show. They throw more of it in, more of it in. And in the morning, when they wake up, what they find is that the sandstone, the green stone that they were finding, changed. And they looked at it, and sure enough, they polished it up, and they discovered something even more shiny, even more beautiful. And this will begin the period of copper. Now, of course, once they knew how to smelt the copper, they came up with different methods, and we're going to learn about those methods and see some of the ancient areas where they would smelt down this copper. But before we do that, I actually want to bring you down below into one of these ancient mines where they would crawl through the bedrock here in Timah Park looking for a vein of copper. So let's go there. We're literally, I'll get that camera from you in a second. All right, I got my sunglasses on. I'm gonna take it off. But here, let me see this. Guys, I don't know if you ever saw. Hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Phil's been my camera guy for all of these tours over here. So as we're down here, you can see they came down into the bedrock, into the sandstone, because once all of the copper that was discovered here on the surface, so they had to come down below. And each of these tunnels that you can see down here, all these different directions, right? These were different veins of copper. And some would go in there, get the copper and bring it out here. And this would be like a central room where all the different tunnels lead back to. And they would leave their, buckets, baskets, whatever they're using here, and bring it out and then lead it to the factory where all the smelting would take place. But let's just walk a little bit through one of these tunnels because it's just so cool. Guys, isn't this beautiful? This is absolutely gorgeous. And I gotta tell you, the kids, when you come in with your families, the kids absolutely love coming through here. And it's one of the great things about visiting Israel is you really get to touch history. But as I always mention in all my tours here, look, you can see a little bit of the copper still right here. Different shafts that you can go through, you can actually still see the chisel marks from thousands of years ago. People have taken out that copper. Not so much here. It's kind of eroded. It's a big opening. I'm sure if we went down some of these other tunnels that went really deep in there, we'd be able to see some of it, but it's not going to be possible for me today. This might be an original chisel mark right here that's still visible. Let's go a little bit inside, see what we can see here. Yeah, you can see a little bit of the marks. I'm not going to go any further, but as I was saying, you get to touch history, right? You got to put your hands right onto history. But it's not just anybody's history, it's our history. It's the Jewish people's history, because this is where Solomon's mines, many people believe, were located, and where a lot of that wealth of First Temple period Israel, a lot of it came from these mines over here. Just so cool. But what I want to do right now is, after bringing you up back to the surface, is to show you do this a little bit. So my friends, here we are at the Smelting Factory here in Timnah. In fact, it's gated off. We'll just zoom in a little bit right here. But that is where a lot of the smelting took place. In fact, the slugs, the refuse, the part of the ore that wasn't used, that's all that rough stone right there. That's not natural stone. Those are the slugs, literally from thousands of years ago, left behind from the smelting factory. But how did that factory actually work? So we saw the copper mine, and the copper mines were all over the place. And what would happen is they would bring, probably with camels, some type of caravan, baskets, right, woven baskets filled with copper, right? Well, it's not coming out, but stones of copper coming here. They bring it to the mortar and pestle. This would be for smaller stones. This is original here. Larger stones, of course, is where they're going to grind it all down and try and obviously have as much green stone, as much of that copper as possible. And then they're going to bring it to the furnace. And the way the furnace worked is you would take all that powder that you just crushed up, the mortar and pestle, and you would put it inside of the furnace with the fire burning down below, most likely using that acacia tree that we saw a little bit earlier. It's a very, very dense wood, and it burns at extremely, extremely hot temperatures. In fact, many of the acacias that used to grow here, this was a whole forest, but was burned down thousands and thousands of years ago because of all of the furnaces and all the burning taking place here, smelting that copper. So how it would work is you would have two guys on either side of the furnace, and you would have these bellows that they would stand on. You imagine just all day long blowing air into the furnace, making that fire hotter and hotter until that copper ore begins to melt and separate. And we know that metal is very, very heavy. So that metal would go all the way down to the bottom. And then at the end, however many hours it took, it would come, they would break open the furnace, and the metal, the copper, would flow into the basin down below. And that slug, all the slugs we could see back there, that refuse, the rest of it, would be tossed to the side. And what you would have are these beautiful copper patties, right? So just stacked up one on top of the other, and maybe they would ship it down to Egypt, back to Egypt. The early mines here were Egyptian. These are the days before Abraham. And then later on, during the First Temple period, a lot of people believe that Solomon's mines were located here as well. And so it would head north, towards Jerusalem and other areas. Or they would take these, copper patties, and they would melt them down until it was liquid, and then pour out the copper and have copper bars. And those copper bars all weighed basically the same, and that's how they could measure down. Of course, that's how people could get paid. Or over here, you can see maybe they would already start to make jewelry, right? And just over here in this stone, you can see sort of the image of a snake, right? A copper snake that you have over here. Or a larger bar, right, that they have over here. There would be a much larger weight of copper. And basically, this is what the big copper, would look like, handles that they could carry it, load it up onto their caravans, and bring this, again, originally down south towards Egypt. A lot of the wealth of Egypt, a lot of the copper mines located in this area. So what made them so wealthy. And then on during the First Temple period up north, and making the First Temple period, especially the days of Solomon, a very, very wealthy place here in Israel, in the world rather, here in the Middle East. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed that tour of Timah Park. We are going to continue south. We're only about a half hour away to Eilat. Of course, we're in the middle of our tour in Eilat. So let's head back over there now. Hope you guys all enjoyed that.
Hey, David, are you with us?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Phil,
Okay,
take this over
good.
here. Can I get you real quick? Can I get you? Are you?
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So we were just here at the port, and this is one of the security officers over here.
Hello,
And, and they just told us that we're not allowed to record the port over here. So we're going to jump into the car. We're going to drive past it. Maybe we'll catch a little bit of it, but I'll talk about it, I guess, from the car. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to.
Okay, sorry, and enjoy your visit in Israel. Thank you very much, guys.
There's a security vehicle. Anyhow, we gotta go. So Phil, take
Why is
this.
he taking out the handcuffs?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want you guys
Alright.
arrested. We do have questions for you, though,
Yeah,
so we can
yeah.
ask while you're driving.
They do have questions that they might like to ask while
So,
we're driving.
so listen, guys. It's very funny only because. Oh, okay. No, I don't need that in my ear right now. Sorry. The port is visible from the road, but apparently you can't take such a close look of the port for security reasons, which I'm sure we can all understand and relate to, due to the sensitive nature of Israel in general. But where we're located, we have Jordan across, we have Saudi Arabia and Egypt nearby, and this is a vital part of our economy here in Israel. As David Ben-Gurion dreamed that this would be our port to the Far East. Here you can see the port through the windows. I roll down my window here. You'll be able to see it a little bit. The cranes and the shipping containers that are bringing goods, again, from the east over here. However, interestingly enough, yes, a lot of these goods are destined to be sold in the marketplaces here in Israel. But a lot of these goods, and especially the cars, you'll see lots of cars. We had a great view of the cars down below where we were. But a lot of these cars are actually going to be brought across the Negev Desert and to our port in Ashdod, which is one of the largest ports here in Israel, where they'll be then loaded onto another ship and then sent across the Mediterranean to the European nations. How else would goods go from the Far East to Europe. Well, one way, the old way, would be to sail around the Cape Hope, which is South Africa, right? Around the continent of Africa, and then up through the Atlantic Ocean over there and onwards to Europe. And then in the 19th century, the 1800s, they built the Suez Canal. So most goods are being brought through the Suez Canal. Already in the mid-1990s, another great Israeli leader, a former prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, told the Israeli business world, if you will, that we can compete with the Suez Canal by building a railroad to connect the port of Eilat with the port of Ashdod. Now, this development did not take place while he was finance minister at that time. He then became prime minister. It happened then. But we know between 2010, even a little bit earlier, all the way to almost 2020, Bibi Netanyahu was the prime minister here in Israel. And one of his platforms during all of those election cycles was to build this railroad track. And they have started the process, the engineering, and the building so that more goods can be brought less expensive, and also just being able to transport more goods on huge freight trains across the Negev Desert to the port in Ashdod in order to ship all of those goods the rest of the way to Europe. So really a vital part of our economy, and when that railroad line is accomplished, when it's finished, we'll be able to increase all of the imports that are going to pass through the land of Israel, and it will be a very, very good moneymaker. I'm just going to go around this circle because I'm actually going to pull off to the side so that I can show you something that just caught my eye over here. Get off of this road a little bit. Bring you right around over here. Lots of development. Of course, a lot of the tourist development's been put on hold because of COVID. But I think we can get out of the car here real quick. Thank you for shining that light and give our viewers some light over here. Well, I just stepped out of the thing, and security here can be somewhat funny because right there you can see a new port that's also being built here. There's no ships there. It's not finished yet, but that will be another place that containers are taken off, and when the railroad is built, we'll be able to ship the goods across the Negev. So over here we have two, an old tourist attraction and a new tourist attraction. Over here we have a camel ranch. A lot of people come to in order to ride camels in the desert when they visit, but I'm sorry if you can't really make it out. It's funny, on Zoom, you can't zoom. I wish I could tell a photo and zoom in over there, but you have a new water. You can kind of see the slides right there where my finger is. New slides are being built. Great attraction for the kids. It's going to be our Wet and Wild down here, and hopefully that'll be open. You know, to increase the tourism here in Eilat, the municipality and really the national government built a new airport, a state-of-the-art airport. Come where you get in the car. A new airport, a state-of-the-art airport, really is unbelievable. The original airport, believe it or not, was in the city. Did not make for, this is a security vehicle again, did not make good use of the land. So they just took down that airport, and they're going to be building a beautiful farm. Not a farm, I'm sorry, a zoo here in Eilat, a world-class zoo. We're looking forward to that being finished. And they built this state-of-the-art airport because the idea was that these low-fare airlines from Europe, like Jet and Easy Fly, and I don't forget all the names already, but you know, these Ryanair, right? No frills airlines, like what do you have in America? Frontier, that one plane that's yellow, I forgot what they were called. But anyhow, these planes would bring those Europeans from the Scandinavian countries in Eastern Europe who for a while used to fly to the Sinai Desert, right? We're only a couple miles. I'm going to take you all the way to the border of Egypt and the Sinai Peninsula, Sinai Desert. We're only a few miles away from there. That was a very popular vacation destination for Europeans. It's always warm, scuba diving, just all the fun that you can have over there. But with the increased terrorism that we've seen in Egypt over the last really couple decades, but heightened tensions over there, it really isn't safe for international tourists. And Israel saw the opportunity. We built this new airport to bring in these airlines so that we can compete with the Sinai Peninsula. So now they're not coming because the borders have been closed, unfortunately. Literally just the airport opened months before COVID broke out a couple of years ago. But the idea was that it would bring in, hundreds of thousands of tourists to come here to Eilat to enjoy the beaches. They could take a day trip to the Dead Sea. They could take a day trip to Jerusalem if they're Christian, to Bethlehem. So anyhow, it's a little dark on the road, and it is just starting to rain. Look out the window. I don't know if you can see it in front, but the raindrops are hitting the windshield. So what I'm going to ask Cheryl to do, before we actually get there, I want to show it to you from the road, but I think it's going to be a little bit difficult, is there is a beautiful underwater observatory and a dolphin beach where you can swim with the dolphins. And again, without scuba diving, you can go scuba diving. There's introductory scuba diving classes. Only from the age of 8, you can come here and already go under the water for a half hour with the tank. And then everybody has their own instructor, so you're not licensed to do it, but you're able to do it as a tourist. So we're going to watch another video. Let's see if we can actually see it. We'll pull over to the side of the road here because I can see it right here. Let me see the camera. Oh, looks like you started it already. Okay, fine. So go ahead with it. For those who aren't too keen on going into the water, but still want to experience the abundant wildlife that exists here in the Red Sea, then you have to visit the Underwater Marine Observatory here in Eilat. It's an idea that was formed by Maurice Kahan, an avid scuba diver who unfortunately was injured during one of his dives and is no longer able to go into the water. That's when he teamed up with a well-known marine biologist, David Friedman, and together they developed the idea of constructing the building you see behind me, which is an underwater observatory. Let's now head into the building, go down below to see how it was constructed and what it is we can find below the water. The Underwater Observatory is an engineering feat even by today's standards. Over 100 tons of metal was used just in the building itself, while another 600 tons was required in order to sink the structure to the seabed below. Of course, they didn't want to disturb the wildlife here. They didn't want to injure the coral reef. So the entire structure was built on dry land and brought out here using several different boats. And finally, once here, as I mentioned before, it was sunk to the bottom. The observatory itself offers incredible panoramic views of the Red Sea. Coral reef, tropical fish, sometimes even sharks and sea turtles can be seen through these windows, which protects the visitor behind a foot of glass. This is an incredible experience for both young and old, giving the visitor an experience similar to that of scuba diving. Let's check out some of the beautiful views that can be seen through these windows. Wow, that That is cool. So Nita, one of the guides here at the Marine Observatory, was just telling me that this pool over here, they're raising sea turtles. And sea turtles are absolutely incredible species. They can live up to 120 years and grow to a size of 660 pounds. But unfortunately for the sea turtles, they are becoming extinct throughout the entire world. So what they're doing here at the Marine Observatory is they've built an island in the middle of the pool with sand that the sea turtles can lay their eggs on. Once they hatch, they now will raise those sea turtles until roughly the age of 2, when they'll be strong enough to survive in the wild on their own. And already they've released hundreds of these sea turtles, trying to increase the number of this species here in the Red Sea. Thanks, Nita. We really appreciate all that information.
Sure, no problem.
Over the last 40+ years, the site has expanded tremendously. Only in 2015, it opened its newest exhibit, known as Shark World. Behind a very thick piece of glass, you have 790,000 gallons of water, making it one of the largest aquariums in the world and the largest in Israel. Let's now walk around to see some of this amazing exhibit. The aquarium has several exhibits. Some of them are interactive with computer screens that teaches the visitor about the various species that live in the Red Sea. But my favorite exhibit, it's called Crossing the Red Sea. You literally walk through a tunnel. In every direction you can see the wildlife that lives here in the Red Sea. I have to imagine that this is what it must have been like for our ancestors when they crossed the Red Sea in the biblical narrative in the book, the Exodus. There are several activities and exhibits here, including feeding times for the various animals that live here. There are restaurants and playgrounds for kids and an area that you can shuck oysters in order to look for the pearls inside of them. There's also the Coral 2000, a semi-submerged yellow boat that runs along the coast of Eilat, allowing you to see all of the coral reef that lives here. And of course, there's also the Amazon hut that I'm standing in right now, which features the area of South America with freshwater fish, spiders, snakes, and all of the various life that lives there. Let's now continue as we explore more of the city of Eilat. One of the more popular beaches and attractions here in Eilat is the Dolphin Reef. They offer a private beach to its visitors and a full array of amenities, including spa services such as massages and relaxation pools. But the most popular part of this reef is swimming with the dolphins. Let's now meet one of the dolphin experts to learn more about these incredible mammals. We're now joined by one of the dolphin experts here at the reef, Eilat Gal. Eilat, thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. I welcome you here.
So many people today are against having dolphins and whales and all types of animals in captivity, but you don't really have them in captivity here. Explain that to us.
So we actually have here a group of dolphins. Right now we have 4 of them. They were all born here. They live and maintain their social life. We try to interfere as less as possible in their lives. So they play, they hunt, they fight, they mate. They're not depending on us when it comes to food. They can hunt their own food by themselves, and they actually have the freedom of choice to go wherever they want to. They can go out to the sea whenever they choose to go out. They go out to join boats, to play, to hunt, and they always come back. They come back for the same reason we always come back home. It's our safe place. We have a good relationship with them. They like it here. So they have the freedom to go wherever they want.
That's incredible. So these dolphins were born right here in the Gulf of Eilat.
Yeah.
So you also offer an opportunity for visitors to swim with the dolphins. What exactly is that?
We have a diving center here which offers people going diving or swimming with them. Basically, when you go inside their home to see them interacting in their own lives, you're not allowed to touch them when you go inside the water because you're visitors and you're strangers. So out of respect, you don't touch them. Because they know people are not touching them, they will come close and feel safe to come close. So people actually have the opportunity to just observe them very close in their natural environment and see them playing and fighting and hunting, which is an incredible experience to see wild animals close as you see them.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. But not everybody feels comfortable to go swimming with the dolphins. So you also have an area that people can walk around and still get close to the dolphins.
Yeah, it's actually where we're standing right now. It's a pier that offers people the opportunity to go inside their natural environment, their home, and then to see them from close by while they're interacting with one another. Also, one of our staff is always sitting here during the day, explaining about the dolphins, offering himself to the dolphins. The relationship that we have with the dolphins is based on trust, love, and knowing each other. We're here for them, they're not here for us. So if they do choose to join us while we're here, people can see them very close by. They can sit on the pier, offer them a touch when they put their hands or legs in the water. If a dolphin chooses to come close enough, it's okay to touch them because here on the pier, you cannot actually move. So if the dolphin comes close, he knows exactly where he is. So it's his choice.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. So tell our viewers something about dolphins that maybe they don't realize.
Dolphins do not sleep. They cannot sleep because they have to think about breathing, and they live in the water and they breathe air like us. So they actually only rest. Half of the brain is resting and the other half keeps all the system working, and that goes on for about 4 or 5 hours. Every few minutes they switch the half of the brains. You can see the dolphin is resting because they swim slower. The breathing is rhythmed, one eye is shut, but the brain waves are working. So it's not sleeping, it's only resting. And also hunting methods. There are beautiful hunting methods that you can see dolphins are inventing in the world. Their motto of inventing hunting skills is minimum effort, maximum gain. They're lazy animals.
That makes sense.
Yeah. They're very similar to us in so many ways. That's one of the ways that they're similar to us. But it's amazing just watching them and seeing them.
Well, Eilat, we really appreciate your time and we wish you the best of luck here with the dolphins.
Thank you. Enjoy.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed the underground water observatory in Eilat's most popular beach, Dolphin Reef. We've arrived to the most southern part of Eilat that we can go to. The border is literally the lights you can see behind me, and having already experienced a security situation, we don't want to have another one. So this is as far as we're going to go, but right here, you can see the Sinai Peninsula, the border with Egypt. To my right, across the way, the lights you can see over there, that is Jordan. A little bit further to the south, I don't know if you can get those lights right over there, that's already Saudi Arabia, and we can't see it, but on the other side of the mountains over here, that is where Egypt is. So it's obviously dark here. What I want to do is just take this opportunity to answer a few of the questions that I personally saw on the chat. Questions about, is Timah Park more popular or less popular than Mitzpeh Ramon? Fact of the matter is Mitzpeh Ramon is accessible on a day trip from Tel Aviv, and then you go back to Tel Aviv. Timah Park is a little bit too far south. It's another 2 hours. that's going to require a whole nother overnight stay here in Eilat. But for those of you who are traveling to Israel on your first journey, usually the tours that I lay out for families is between 10 and 12 days, which really doesn't give us enough time to come down here to Eilat. If you were to extend it to 14, 15 days ideally, so we can come down here to Eilat, spend a night or two, go scuba diving, go, you know, all the water sports, do some hiking. Even if you wanted to do a day trip, cross the border into Jordan, there's organized day trips to Petra that we talked a little bit about in the Nabateans. Before I open it up to any questions that maybe Cheryl or Lee wants to pass on to me via my camera guy, Phil, I just want to remind us, all of us, that it's the desert, right? The Midbar, a place that we can medaber, that we can speak, to get out here into the shetach, as we call it in Hebrew, out into the wilderness, into the wild, into nature, the quietness, that we can hear ourselves think. Sometimes that's a little bit difficult, with all those flashing lights of the city and all of the noise that's associated with it. Thank you again, everybody. We had over 100 viewers, I think even over 150 different viewers, different times during this tour. Every tour, it gets larger and larger. We really appreciate all of you tuning in once again. Please write me, contact me on Facebook, look me up, David Sussman Israel Tours. I'd love to hear from you personally, and I promise to respond to each and every single one of you. The borders of Israel are opened up to those who are vaccinated. You just need to get a corona test before you fly out, and one at the airport. And when that negative test comes in, you are free to roam about the country. We're taking bookings for the summer, for adventures from families all over the world in various sizes. And of course, the Atlanta Israel Coalition is going to be putting together a tour as well. Please give generously. Allow us to create more great content about Israel for you. It's a teamwork here. Like I said, everybody at the Atlanta Israel Coalition and the offices in Atlanta, they do this on a volunteer basis. All of your money, 100%, goes to creating wonderful content like the tours we're doing here in Israel. So please, if you have it in your hearts, which we know you do, but if you have it in your wallet as well, please give. It's really important. We want to bring Israel to the masses. Like I said, it's not just Atlanta, it's all over America and all over the world. We got viewers who are tuning in. So again, from me to you, thank you. We'll see you in a couple of weeks in the city of Haifa for another great live virtual tour. Cheryl, Lee, if there are any comments or questions, go ahead, pass it on to Phil. And
Perfect. Somebody asked about the Red Sea Diving School, Operation Moses, as far as where that was. I know obviously we weren't going to see that on this tour. Is it close to where you're standing right now?
Red Sea Diving School, Operation Moses. Is that close to where we are now?
So there are a lot. The question was a particular dive school, Operation Moses, is that located close by over here? And so I'm not so sure about this Operation Moses. There's a few operations with that name. There was a very famous one that they were taking some of the Ethiopian immigrants out of Ethiopia and bringing them here to Israel. But the dive schools, they're all over the place. They're great. Come here. In 8 hours, you can get licensed, 2 stars, and about 100. And I'm a dive master. About 100 feet, 30 meters under the water, there's a sunken Navy ship over here. Lots of fish swimming through there, lots of coral reef, the dolphins, the sea turtles, all of the great tropical fish. It's a wonderful experience.
What are the sources of drinking water for Eilat and other desert cities?
Right, there was a question, drinking water, where does it come from? So there is aquifer water in this area, but most of the water here in Eilat for drinking in the desert area is desalinated water that is being pumped in from the Mediterranean. There is this idea to build a canal from the Red Sea all the way to the Dead Sea. And along the way, remember, we're at sea level here at the Red Sea, but the Dead Sea, the lowest place on Earth, is 1,500 feet below sea level. So that water's traveling down, turning turbines along the way when it's finally built to produce electricity to operate the desalination plants. and we can irrigate the entire area over here. Maybe in 20 years, when you come visit Israel, you'll also shoot, or however you say it, but play a round of 18 on the golf courses here in the Negev Desert. We are building a desalination plant for Jordan here on the Red Sea as well, in order to fulfill our quota of 50 million cubits of water, 50 million liters of water, as part of the peace treaty we signed with them in 1994, that we get from the Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee today, that we pipe to them. So in order not to take it from the Sea of Galilee, return it to its full height, allow that water to travel through the Jordan River, we're building them a desalination plant here for those for that drinking water that they desperately need.
We have a question about the observatory. Somebody asked when it was built and when it started opening to the public.
When was the observatory built and open to the public? I don't remember offhand. I want to say that it began its construction in the mid-70s and was opened up in the early 80s. So it is a fairly old structure, relatively speaking, here in Eilat, but it still attracts tourists far and wide. And as you can see, they're constantly renovating and keeping it up to date. It's a fantastic place to visit.
We have a question going back to Ms. Petrion. We have a viewer who wants to know when the annual meteor shower is. Would you know the answer?
It is the meteor shower.
So there are two major meteor showers in Mitzvah Ramon, but there are a few minor ones that happen throughout the year. I believe that the major one happens late July, mid-August, right around that time period. It always kind of varies a little bit year to year. It's a huge attraction, mostly for Israelis that come down there, but any tourists who are in that time, if I can convince them to tack on a couple extra days and visit the desert, we do that glamping that I talked about in the video, get these great tents, they're air conditioned. Sometimes we can even organize some live music down at the bottom, depending on the budget. Obviously a larger group, we're able to do a little bit more, but I've had some small families that had the ability, the finances to do so. We've gone down there, had an amazing barbecue with these high-powered telescopes. You could see the rings around Saturn and the shooting stars and the moons around Jupiter. Really just an amazing experience to go stargazing in Mitzvah Ramon.
Well, I don't know about everyone else, but I'm sold. We definitely want to talk about that and add it to our trip, right?
She's totally sold on the idea. They want to add it to their trip.
Fantastic. We are all here in Israel looking forward to all of you coming. We're so happy that the borders finally opened up. Go ahead, contact me, reach out to the Atlanta Israel Coalition. They know how to reach me. Reach me on Facebook. Look me up, David Sussman Israel. My website will pop up, and we'll see you here in Israel soon.
Thanks
With
again,
love from
David.
Israel. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next tour.
Thank you. And thank you to all who have joined us from all over the world. We really appreciate you being here. We want to thank our sponsors again. Definitely don't miss our next tour. We couldn't do it again without your support and our sponsors, and our promotional partners and media partners. David Sussman's information is below. And again, if you want to get in touch with him and you don't know how, reach out. We're happy to answer any questions you have or help in any way. So here's the information to register for the last tour. And again, who knows, this will be the last tour. If you have suggestions, places you want to see, put it on the survey. Let us know. We're definitely happy to try to show you as much of Israel as we possibly can. And if you've missed previous tours or you want to go back to the beginning of this one, here's the link on our YouTube, or you could just go and search for Atlanta Israel Coalition and you'll see our virtual programming, all the different tours we've done with David, and a whole host of other things for you. To learn more about us, please visit our Linktree, our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, our YouTube, the Atlanta Jewish Connector, or email us. And donations may be made through our Facebook page or PayPal, Venmo, Amazon Smile. If you're shopping, please add us as your charity, we would really appreciate it. And we do get a % of that. So thank you again. Take the survey. We're asking because we really do care about what you think. And we want to make this programming the best we can to bring Israel again to you. Wherever you are, enjoy, and I look forward to seeing you on our next tour. Good day.